or A and B, torn between a rock and a hard place. Is it the first possibility, the second possibility, or both? A bit like human nature and how people could slithering around from pillar to post, from person to person, door to door, city to city, stream to stream, and with all the confusion and driven by all the chaos and more confusion, being driven here, driven there, and this option, that one. Is it another option? Is it 4 options? Is it several options? Who knows? But when you think of a question, what really is the question asking you? Has it got a? Is it asking you a hidden question? Is there something else that question is trying to extract from someone? Think about it. Whether it's something on the news or something that somebody wants us to think about. And those that are trying to change our hearts and minds to agree with them, even if it's just to agree with them, or at the very least to understand them and the reasons why they have their beliefs and the reasons why we most probably have our beliefs. But a lot of people don't think of really what does something really mean. They just think of things on a surface level, and they don't always think that what does this question imply? Because people often think, oh, in black and white terms, this is black, that is white. There's no grey at all. There's no shades of grey. Everything is just completely normal, completely good, completely abnormal, completely bad. And a lot of people as well, they don't look behind the masks because so many people, they have a face for work, they have a face for their online life, they have a different face for when they go out shopping, they have a different face for their next door neighbour, they have another face for somebody else. And whether it be with spanners, they give spanners out like they're dishing out sweets to all and sundry. And then when somebody simply just says, why have you removed my mod ship? And then act like nothing happens. Well, expect for that to be asked, because it's not whether something is important to somebody or whether something is offensive to somebody. But what is really important is it's the intention behind something, because people's intentions, you can tell a lot by people's patterns, because it's not even so much even what happens in life, and and even so much of what doesn't happen with regards to actions and with regards to words, but also it is the patterns, the timing of things. I mean, when you get some people say, oh well, this and that's just a coincidence, that when things happen quite often, and they maybe happen only in certain situations that involve other people, and the way that other people's involvement influences others' decisions in who they cut off and who they mix with in their social circles, you can tell a lot, because it's like smoke and mirrors, really. You know, there's no smoke without fire. And if you think about it, it's almost like a kind of a spiritual thing in someone's life. You know, spiritual in the sense of you judge things by how you feel about something, you know, just something that comes to you that you're not searching for, but you get feelings about things, and it could be quite vague, and your instinct would just alone your instinct will just say to you that, you know, that this person's a bad person, or this house, I don't feel comfortable being in this person's house. You know, it doesn't matter how nice the person is to me, and the person you could like and consistently like that person, but we just bad vibes, you know, something off, you know. It could be something that's not that big. It could be a very small kind of issue. It could be just something that's just strange. You can't put your finger on it at first, but more often than not, when something completely freaks you out, it'll be something where it be hair. You just feel you'll feel a bit of cold air, you know, just you just feel a bit of cold air from nowhere, or you'll perhaps hear a noise and think you're going mad, or if you don't hear a noise, then you'll sense something, that you'll feel that there's like somebody else in the room with you at the time, or it could be something that's a lot less obvious than that, because, you know, not everybody who has psychic abilities and have anybody that is spiritual at all, they're not all going to have exactly the same experiences, and of course some people are going to have it very differently to each other, because if people's personalities are different per se, people's personalities can be so much different, people so much different to some people in every way possible. Out of those people that out of a lot of people that don't claim to be psychic at all, or have any kind of intuition, what you want to call it, where they can detect things that are beyond our five senses, which, you know, a lot of people just think, well, you know, unless you can see something, unless you can hear something, or unless you can smell something, or unless you can physically feel something, then therefore, unless those are things apply, nothing exists. Well, but but people that often just have that mentality and just say, well, you know, everything that they've been taught, and everything that is out of this solid world and our reality, or our so-called reality, out of things that have never been proven, and that could possibly never ever be proven scientifically wise, where they can never be proven scientifically, where there perhaps wouldn't maybe be a lot of evidence for even to say that, well, whether this or that exists. Because if people get feelings, even people that say, oh, well, you know, feelings are just mumbo jumbo, I only go with evidence and facts, evidence at best. But there are often people that come out with silent contradictions, because they often say, well, when it suits them, I had a feeling about that person, you know, afterwards. Like somebody say that they didn't have a problem with at first, but suddenly after, whether it's just going with the flow, keeping up with the Joneses, or dancing to the majority's tune, those that don't want to be socially isolated, or they don't ever practice what they preach, and they just want to go along with the majority because they feel that is the only way that they will survive socially. That's the only way they can make friends at all. And you see that, of course, in the real world, so to speak, using that term, offline. But online, over the years, I've seen so much mental illness of it, to a really high degree on YouTube, especially, and quite a lot on the other big sites. But the thing about YouTube, it's not just about the fact that some people in the UK community and in our community, especially with the main channels that I either interact with or watch in some way or another, even out channels that I don't have an opinion about individually, but that I still find interesting, to some extent, and out of those channels that I follow, even if I, out of those people that I don't like, even because I may happen to like some of the guests that they have on there or the subjects that they talk about. So people just think, well, it's only normal just to engage with those that are on the same page as us, or that, or that we at least like fairly as an individual. But, after a while, it's just like having an echo chamber. And I still see a lot of that happening online in general. And, you learn often a lot more sometimes. You don't always learn so much from those that you disagree with, but you learn at least their mindset. Because if people actually know the reasons why, if they knew half the reasons why people had completely polar beliefs to them, then there's more chance that they could change their mind. But that's the thing when you have fascism and complete war on freedom of speech. And the left and right are both tarred the same brush, I'm afraid, where that's concerned. And over the years, I've seen more and more of it. But it's in a different way sometimes, and sometimes it's in the same way. That's just what I've witnessed. How I know for a fact what I've observed, but also what other people have observed, and they've said more or less, the same reasons as myself. That their biggest trick will not only be just to not engage with those that they are completely opposed to, but they'll go from one extreme to the other. That it'll either be very confrontational, but it'll be to the extreme, even online, and especially offline, where there just be so much violence you're seeing in this country, and since the whole country has been more divided ever since Brexit occurred, and other situations as well, involving migrants and migrant hotels and all the other issues in the world, even that are having a knock-on effect towards Britain. And not only that, but the same thing, as I say, often offline, where both sides will just go from one extreme to the other, where they'll just completely say, oh no, freedom of speech has got to be stopped, even if it means that our side are stopped. We think there should be less, we should shut down all discussions, or we should shut down this and that, because they're rather shoot themselves in the foot just to see the other side be deleted. And when, of course, you delete when you delete the debate, then that's the oldest trick in the book. Just remove a situation, even that's not going to help spread your word, but they don't think of it like that. They just think, well, I'd rather silence the opposition, even if it means, well, the government have to come after me. And of course, even when that isn't the case, and one side is able to shut down the other side, even through lying and vast, exaggerating, even to the point of almost lying most of the time, and certainly having their own bias and having their own biased spin on it, that they think that's the only kind of weapon they could use. And if somebody really truly deep down in their heart knew that they were right, they would be confident. Because to me, why would somebody have to mask their superiority with chaos? Because what is the point? Because if somebody really if somebody's so confident that their argument, that they are right, and that they even act like, well, they've always thought that, they've always had those beliefs, even if they haven't, but they've had those beliefs that they've always had their beliefs, and that they're never going to change their mind. Well, surely actions speak louder than words, don't they? People can use any excuse and say, well, it's pointless, I've tried this before, you can't get anywhere with people, you can't get anywhere with just by doing this and that, in this life. But that's still convenient, isn't it? Because if people said that a long time ago, whatever the argument is about, the world wouldn't be what it is today. We would still have the same problems that we had hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, and we'd be in a lot worse way. So that alone proves that it's just an excuse. When somebody has run out of arguments, then what they just, that they all just resort to making up the most ridiculous things. Like, all sides of politics will do that, and individuals will do that. Just look at the way that how people will treat each other, that if they haven't got anything concrete on somebody, they'll just make up anything that they can think of at the time. And it can be the most stupid, far-fetched things. And to be a good lie, you've also got to have a good memory as well. And after a while, their lies will get so much more far-fetched. And not only that, they'll add more and more on. So each time they'll add another layer on. And then they'll add another layer on top of that. Then they'll add another layer on. And they can't actually keep up with their lies. And often, they often, they can't keep their introductions short either. Because a lot of liars are often, I notice, and I think it's known fact as well, that even during police interrogation, often when the police even suspect that somebody's lying from the start, they will often not, because often liars will contradict themselves out of panic, even out of those that are sometimes quite intelligent and that, are capable of sometimes often getting away with crimes. But where they catch themselves out is the fact that they often seem to change their story right from the start, and often, they will continue to still do that afterwards. But often, people's introductions, always try and look at people's introductions, and when they next come out with the same bullshit, whatever it's about or whoever it's about, always focus on the beginning, and also, focus on also their body language as well. So, so if you can, when you see somebody, when they're doing a video of themselves, then always focus on their body language, but more importantly, the eyes, because they say that the eye is the mirror to the soul, and you can tell a lot. Because often when people are lying, they often can't look at you straight at all. It won't just be like, well, be a nervous thing, because not everybody looks at somebody. Most people don't have as much eye contact as each other. Because that's just a confidence thing. But when somebody can never look you straight in the eye at all, and when they're being faced, and especially if you're suspicious of them and you ask them questions and they can never pay eye contact, then you know that it's not just because, well, they're shy or they're anxious in some way, because it wouldn't keep coming to order, would it? I mean, like, especially when it comes to the real world, I won't mention going to my business, but use it as an example, especially at this moment in time. But just talking about people offline now, there's one individual, a man, and I've asked him several questions, and even his voice, he stutter. I mean, and he's not a nervous person on the whole, even though I don't know him that well. I've only known him a few months. He's not an acquaintance, but he's just somebody in authority who is meant to be basically representing me, but he's more like he representing the opposition. So it's a bit like having a kind of defence lawyer, even though he's not my lawyer. I can, safely say that. But it'd be like having your defence act as the prosecution, or the other way around. And you just think of how it just goes to show how, as well, how selfish humanity is when it comes to actually how people use people, and how they will even be corrupt via the back door, even knowing that you can't prove something outright, or you've got evidence to certainly say that they're not favourable to you when their job legally makes them obliged to be, and if not in cases where they have to be in favour of you and not the other party. I always, if people's voices as well change a lot, you can tell quite a lot by that, because that wouldn't keep happening. And that's just anybody like myself that barely knows anything about psychology, because some things are just down to common sense, pure common sense at that. Because why would somebody consistently always act awkward when it comes to awkward situations? Because and in my experience, I've found that more often than once, because, and like this individual now, the same person I was talking about, this man, every time I made it clear from the start that I didn't trust him, even before he opened his mouth. When I spoke to him over the phone, I didn't find him overly friendly. He seemed like he wasn't barely going through the motions. But I think, well, yeah, okay, Charlie sees some of the flesh. I don't usually get feelings about people, or not that strongly. But as soon as I see some for the first time, if I met like somebody in the flesh, like this man, I just didn't like him. And I thought afterwards he seemed a bit better when I spoke to him, but I was feeling a little bit anxious on the first occasion that I met him. But I could just tell, just completely just hostile. Like he just didn't like me anyway. Like he made his mind up before he saw me. Maybe based on information or from his colleagues, or because some of them are two-faced. But in a nutshell, someone who morally and legally should be on my side. I won't say too much more. But hard to explain. I just, not only very hostile feeling, which is just the main thing I've got, but I just felt very kind of strange, and then a a few other times I spoke to him over the phone, and I thought he seemed a bit better. And then afterwards, I just felt very negative. And then as soon as I really showed my hand in and said to him, look, don't 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 be condescending. I don't want your pity. I don't want your this rubbish. Look, those details. Tell me what they said to you, and tell me what your opinion is. Are you for me or against me? Because legally, you're meant to be representing me and not them. And also, um, you've also been brainwashed, haven't you? It seems. And when the other party, without saying what it's about at the moment, because I know I'm in the right, and I probably have the upper hand in a while and get at least some justice, because I've still got a case ongoing about that, where I could be due some compensation. And if I do, I have a good piss up, and I will gloat to them and say, well, even if I don't get half as much as I deserve, because no amount of money would be enough from these people who I will mention at some point. Some people on here, if they're listening, would know who it's about probably. But he's never been able to answer some straight questions. He makes the excuse that he doesn't know, and then it goes to something else. And then he just said, "Oh, he'll get back to me. Some things he hasn't answered yet." And then when I've raised it with him, he's had the excuse and just said, "Oh, he just makes some excuse." I just said, "Well, and he basically had some excuse and just said, "Oh, well, I don't know what's what really." But some things, there's still most things that he hasn't answered me out of just things that are straight yes or no, that are just factual type of questions. And I would have cornered him like a cornered rat on those things, but I already know enough anyway. So because my instinct is never, I'm never usually wrong about somebody. Not that I've actually met, not when I've had a very strong feeling about someone. When I've had even quite moderately bad feelings about someone, then I've been wrong, and I change your mind, and there's been a reason why I felt like that. I've just rather been anxious that day, like anyone can, even out people that more psychic than me, with actually abilities to do things that I don't, or they don't just get things that come to them like me. Actual just intuition and being able to read people. But I did. If I pressed him on that, I would have. I thought, well, do I show my hand anymore, or doesn't it make a difference? Because I know what the score is where he's concerned. Like some other people, especially at the moment, talking about people offline. But when I didn't press him on that anymore, just to see if he would bring it up, if he would suddenly answer those questions and contradict himself. I did it to try trap him, to give him a false sense of security, because he's not very bright, even for somebody that does the job that he does. But the other point, really, to finish up, is just a quick video, just to before I go offline completely till later on, and anybody that may happen to follow me elsewhere, then they may see me on TikTok later on, because because recently I haven't been online anyways. I haven't been online so much at all the last few days, and but going back to what I was saying, more than just that, he's also been unreliable when it comes to keeping in contact with me as well. So and also the fact that he's worse than the last person that was representing me, in the same job as him. So but it just goes to show as well that how stupid some people are, even from their own point of view, knowing the fact that will give me ammunition to expose him, to shine a light you know, because the saying goes, truth lies, but sprints is it sprints run marathons. And as I say, you know, after a while, I'll probably complain anyway, unless somebody else just replaces him anyway, where I would have a choice of the matter legally. But I'll see how that one goes, basically. Right. Over and out. Bye for now.